All right, good evening, Springs BOE. We're streaming to YouTube. Phone lines are open. You are being recorded. You may start your meeting.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all in attendance tonight. Vicki, can you roll call, please?
Sure. In attendance tonight is Eric Frederickson, Patrick Rodat, in the field, Kate Saris, and Dermot Quinn.
Thank you very much. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, so I love when we start a meeting with our students. So without further wait, at this time, I'd like to invite Emily O'Reilly and her students to the podium. Can't wait to see what you guys have for us tonight.
I thought we should give a little bit of a roadmap as to how we got to these future projects that you'll be able to see. So, as it says, it's a long walk to this project, and you'll see the connection in a minute. The tiny little words down below are all of the New York State standards that we addressed through this unit, and so I thought it reminded me a little of all the side effects, on the drug interaction, like all these, but it goes on and on. So just through this one unit, we've addressed all of those standards that you see. So we started, very clunky thing. So we started with a fiction study, and we read A Long Walk to Water, which is a book about two Sudanese children and what they have to go through just to survive on a day-to-day basis. And one of the characters, Salvador, actually rose to create a corporation called Water for Sudan, which has given water to over 500,000 people in Sudan and neighboring countries. We moved into a nonfiction study, and we pull articles that have to do with anything that can be connected to the book. So water usage, water access. We even do a water calculator to see how much we use on a day-to-day basis. We talk about climate, educational access, inequality, women's rights, the effect of war on children, especially. And it's a crucial step because it brings us one step closer to our research project, which is going on right now. So kids start to look around and see other things that are happening in the world and things that they might want to investigate. Then we move on to interviewing a person who has immigrated to the United States. And students' job is to really tell us about his or her life, but more than that, really to honor their story. And they've done a beautiful job with these, for many years. And they interview their friends, their family, parents many times. Staff members have jumped in and helped us out with this, and they even tell their own story if they choose to do so, and you'll hear one of those stories tonight. And then we jump to poetry, and we contrast what women like to use, and we contrast their poems, I Hear America Sing, and I Too. So those are some of the questions that we brainstorm. Historical context, the figurative language used, central theme, and of course tone, and how that conveys the central theme. And then on to what you'll see today. So the final culmination is for the students to compose the poem in the style of the I Too Sing America poem on the left. That tells the perspective of the person that they interview. So it's really multi-step because they have to empathize with that person. They have to get into their mind and into their heart and tell that story with honor and grace. So many times my brain works like this. I say, I wonder what would happen if we, and then we just go from there. And this year, my brain said, I wonder what would happen if we made video projects with them and set them to music and narrated them. And I told the kids that, and I said, I don't know how to do those things, but I bet that you do, and I bet that you can figure it out, and they all did. And so what you're going to see now are just beautiful art-forming projects. So I'd like to acknowledge these first, and then just run them straight so that we can see them one after the other. So tonight we'll see Benny Villa's project. Thank you, Benny. Because you're not. Madison Winter. Full career here. Nella Sangarima is here. And we'll end with Gladys Williams. I too sing America. This year, shame, underestimated. Day and night searching for the finish line. And in every place I walk from path to path searching for success, starting over again. I come from mountains and buildings. I don't touch the clouds, but I'm afraid of heights. I risk my life every day, but tomorrow will be seen. I will not be ashamed of who I am or where I'm from. Work will pose directly day after day, spread my wings and fly. I can succeed. I can adapt. I will sleep in Zen, alone. I will sleep in peace with my family. I too am a America. America is a new world to me. A new world that works with death, yet keeps me living. Not a place I want to be, or where I need to be. Not the place my family has lived its whole life, but the place where our lives now start. To America. I choose America. I come to America with opportunity to escape all the struggle. I take my brother by the hand to travel this unfamiliar land, hoping to reunite with their parents once again. I close my eyes to relive that feeling, the smell of the mountains, the sound of the village. Look how good my dad harvests his cacao farm. But I'm grateful for the opportunity that I was able to try things I would have never done if I stayed back at home. I'm grateful that I took my brother by the hand and traveled through that unfamiliar land. I too am America.
To send America. A farewell and maybe a return. In the blink of an eye. Nervous, excited, displayed. The strong wind called my name, pulling me back to my family. Tears of hope comforted me, a child, alone with strangers, suffering to become stronger, hiding my feelings, never giving up, finding my place. I too am America. From the hills where clouds touch the earth, where my mother's voice was the morning song, and the rivers carried our stories. I left with nothing but a name, a prayer folded in my pocket, and a hope to stubborn to let go of. The journey was thus in silence, a road that swallowed my tears. I crossed borders where fear whispered, "You don't belong." I carried the weight of goodbyes on my back, each step an ache, each mile a wound. Here I am seen but not known. My hands filled with what others take for granted, my voice muffled beneath their judgment. This land feels both mine and not, its promise heavy with cost. But I sing softly, knowing my voice is part of its song. I too am America.
Thank you very much for giving them a chance to share their work. I really appreciate it. It's filled with emotion, and every challenge I give them, they always ask for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were beautiful moving pieces of writing. Thank you to the students for sharing that, because I'm sure there's a lot of work that goes into that and thought. And I like it was like having to hold it together there. You know, I have to do a meeting tonight, and that's really touched my heart. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being willing to share your work.
Yeah, yeah. It's one thing to write, and it's another thing to share it. So thank you very much for doing it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mrs. Aron, for doing that. Your work is so much appreciated. Was there anything else that was?
No, we're all set. I think we're going to excuse ourselves.
Yeah, I was, this is part of the meeting that you always hear me say, please don't feel obligated to stay, parents and students, but thank you for coming tonight. These are going to be very special when we open that way. So if you wish to leave, by all means do so. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you again.
So we're going to move now to the public comment period of our meeting, and in the interest of consistency, even though there's not a lot of people staying tonight, I want to set the stage for the public comment. Number one is for agenda items only, and whether it's people calling from home or in here tonight, I would wish to say that we are about to convene to the public comment period of our meeting. It's absolutely crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues, and appreciate all of your comments. While we may not be able to respond to your concerns and questions tonight, we do take them very seriously. We want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be, so we can respond thoughtfully at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. I also want to point out that under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel or any individual identity. On these matters, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. And finally, we intend that our school board meetings serve as an example to our students that members of our school board and members of our community can deal with controversial issues in a civil manner and demonstrate mutual respect. In that spirit, we ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that may be expressed. We ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. Thank you. And with that, are there any comments with regard to the agenda, both LTV or here tonight? Yes, please come to the podium.
General comment, I looked for the agenda yesterday at 3 o'clock, it was not available. I would ask you to, I don't know when it did become available, probably sometime today. I would ask you, the staff and district, to do as much as possible to provide the public with more reasonable advance notice of the agenda and the text of the presentation, such as the budget presentation. In other governments, they have to do it on a Friday, they're going to have a meeting on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of the following week. Next. On your agenda, you have item 7.1, you're going to be discussing the memorandum of agreement with respect to the district teachers. I would ask you, when you have that conversation, that you inform the public not only of the terms of the 2% per year increase that has been negotiated over the course of the next 4 additional years, but that you give a figure on what the total cost or increment is for next year with regard to this new contract, which, as we all know, includes not just the 2% salary increase per every employee or teacher, but also the step increase, which I think typically, taking a quick look at the schedule, is about 3%. So that what you're proposing, what you agree to, I'm not saying it's unreasonable, is essentially a 5% increase for a teacher, an existing teacher, or for anyone who's hired, when you take into consideration both the step increase and the negotiated salary increase. Next, 6.7, and so I think the public is about to know, how much will this new contract cost next year if it's ratified? Going, second item that I'd like to mention before the meeting starts is the Repair Reserve Fund Proposition 6.7. There has been absolutely no public discussion other than a brief mention at the last budget meeting that there would be a request for a reauthorization of the Repair Reserve Fund. But I'm astonished at the amount that's being requested and you have put on the agenda, $7.5 million. No discussion whatsoever of what you project are the needs for a reserve fund. You have, obviously, needs to make repairs. You have an existing repair reserve fund that started back in 2007 with a fairly modest $100,000 authorization. And over the years, there have been some, not many, additional authorizations, all of which require public approval, which you're now seeking, perhaps only because they made a point of it earlier this year as being something that's a legal requirement. So, why do we need a 7.5% budget reserve, repair reserve fund, which allows the district every year to take any over budgeted funds and simply push them into the reserve without any real accountability? And there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every dollar that goes into the repair reserve fund year after year is a dollar that is not returned to the public, to the taxpayers, because there's no such thing as a free reserve. It comes out of the tax dollars that the taxpayers have to pay. So I'd like you to discuss that in detail when you get to item 6.7 on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else present that would like to come up? LTV, do we have any callers?
We have no callers on the line.
All right, we're going to move to your next item on the agenda. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve items 4.1 to 4.13 on our consent agenda tonight. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we're going to move to the budget presentation now. This is our budget presentation number 3. At this time, Sam, would you review this budget presentation number 3 for us?
Sure. Not used to this corner here, so it's gonna be.
We can move.
It's completely disorienting. All right, so, this is our third budget presentation. Obviously, we've gone through a lot of material. We're gonna talk about the remainder bit of the budget tonight, as well as the two propositions that are going to be on the ballot. I want to remind you that we have divided the budget this year in terms of these presentations into three sections. First, we had central support, sorry, five sections. We have central support, we have instruction, we have special schools, special education, other schools, we have transportation, and now we have benefits and debt service. Now we talk most about benefits and debt service. Obviously, we begin every one of these presentations the same way, talking about the very proud accomplishments that this community should be aware of what's going on here in Spring School. I don't need to read it to you. If you're familiar with it, but a lot of wonderful things are happening here in the district. Budget preparation process, again, to reorient ourselves where we are. The district administration has consulted with teachers and staff to determine what they're looking for, what they think it needs to be. The administration looks at the efficacy of these programs, they gather pricing, they put this together for you in terms of these presentations to allow you to make decisions about where we stand. Obviously, at the same time, monitoring where our revenue is. We're going to talk about revenue tonight as well. Budget goals, always important to have goals in what you're doing here. I think the most important goal here is that we're having a budget that builds on community support and stays within the property tax cap limit. And not to preview our future slides, but we have succeeded in that effort. We can move on. Okay, transportation, sorry, we'll pick up that slide. Transportation. So obviously, you have to provide transportation for most students who attend school here, and for students who attend high school in East Hampton, as well as other unique placements based on special education needs. You're responsible for transporting students to any private placement within 15 miles of the student's home, 50 miles for special education students. And you have partnered with other districts from time to time to save money on certain unique special education transportation needs. The district is also planning to purchase some buses next year with appropriation to the capital fund. We will come to that at the end of the presentation, so keep that in the back of your head. Presentation, budget here. This is the budget for what we need in terms of transportation costs next year. There are increases. Fuel is a volatile expense. Fuel costs are very hard to predict. When we create this budget, we're trying to figure out where we are in terms of what it's going to cost to fuel our vehicles for more than a year from now. And so we have to be on the side of making sure that we have enough money for all that. You can see how that all shakes out. Benefits is a big part of the budget. Other than salary, the most expensive thing we have in the district is the health insurance plan. It's one of the many benefits that we have. We are mandatorily required to participate in state retirement systems for our employees. The payments are based on a percentage of the employee's salary based on when they started. It's a complicated formula, which I can get into if you're interested. Social Security system will require to pay the employer half of the Social Security tax. Health insurance, which we offer to most employees, required by labor contract, and other benefits, which you can see there. I want to talk a little bit about, so here's how pensions are calculated. So for the teachers, you take the amount of money that a teacher makes and it's multiplied by a contribution rate set by the retirement system. The contribution rates are based on a 5-year rolling average of how the retirement system does with its investments. The retirement system is one of the largest public pension systems in the world. It's guaranteed by the New York State Constitution to be funded to 104% of its liability. They have professional money managers to manage the investments of this fund. It is bigger than I think any of us can conceptualize about how many places they invest money. The percentage that we pay as a district into the fund is the basis of how much they made minus that 104% of its liability, and the employers have to make up the difference. You see, I have a chart here dating back to the 1970s showing what the contribution rate has been. So we're kind of approximately in the middle of where it's been over time. You'll remember the dot-com era of the early 2000s, where the stock market was flying high. The pension system did really well as investments, so it didn't need to hit municipalities for any contributions. You can see that big dip in the middle there. As the stock market has gotten not as advantageous for investors, it goes up. When it gets more advantageous for investors, it goes down. So here are what your pension system costs are looking like. So you can see the contribution rate for the 24-25 column on the left-hand side, and then we're projecting the contribution rates in the 25-26 on the right-hand side of the left box. The TRS contribution rate has not been completely solidified by TRS yet. They're going to tell us in the next couple of weeks, and we'll make that number solid. They always are right on with their projections, but we have to make an estimate. ERS is a little bit trickier because ERS, that's a system not for teachers, but for civil service, works off of a fiscal year that does not match ours. Their fiscal year starts on April 1st. Their contribution rates change on April 1st. But they don't tell us the contribution rates for April 1st, 2026 right now, so we have to make a best guess estimate. So sometimes a little more money in your ERS appropriation because we are figuring what is the likely contribution rate going to be, and then we project that off the salaries that balance the 3 months of our fiscal year. It'd be nice if these things lined up, but they don't, so we have to guess. So those contribution rates multiplied by our salary cost for next year is how you get to the box on the right, and that shows where we are. Now you'll say, wait a minute, why is the contribution rate changing a certain percentage, but the percentage change of what's cost is changing a different percentage? Our salaries go up. So as we multiply that out, it's not a one-for-one calculation. Health insurance is calculated slightly differently. So we participate in the New York State health insurance program called Empire Knightship, with hundreds of local governments and the state employees across the state. Rates are set in Albany through the New York State Department of Civil Service, and they are set in December for the following 12 months. So again, we have to use a little bit of projection and best guess when we create this. We know exactly what our health insurance contribution costs are going to be for the period of the first 6 months of our fiscal year. We already know the contribution rate for 2025. We don't know the contribution rate for 2026. We're not going to find out until after Thanksgiving. But unfortunately, Jonathan and I have to present the budget to you now. So we talk to other business officials, we look at trends in the last few years to try to figure out what we need to budget for the back 6 months of our fiscal year. Once again, the fiscal years don't line up, so we have to figure out best faith, good faith estimate of where we're going to be. Not always right. The trend has been over the last few years, it's gone up like 12 to 14% a year. This year, the state surprised everybody, and the contribution rate only went up a tenth of a point. So, we were way off by, 11.9%, but you can't miss the other way because health insurance is a mandatory part of our operation. So we have to project in worst case scenario situation to make sure that we can fund the health insurance and not have to have mid-year cuts of the programs in order to pay the bill. This shows what health insurance costs have been since 1999. And you will see that the health insurance rates have gone up something like close to 300% over the last 25 years, which is an amazing increase about where we are. I think everyone in this room can still remember the year 1999. You can see what the family cost was, and you can see what the family cost is today. The increase has been astronomical. And if you think that this is not done, I don't think realistically that anybody in 1999 ever thought that the contribution, the cost, the raw share cost of the health insurance would be what it is today. But I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we didn't think that 25 years from now, it will be in the six figures. And so that's just something to think about as we project future budgets and future costs. All right? So this shows the trend. This basically puts it into a chart form we saw in the previous slide. I say this to you to illustrate how much health insurance costs and how big a part of our budget it is and how we have to treat it seriously. So contribution rates, obviously you have your raw share cost, what health insurance premium cost. Employees pay a certain percentage of this through a labor negotiated contract. And so you can see active employees pay a portion of the cost. Most retirees don't pay a lot of it because of the way the contracts work. And that can change in the future, subject to negotiation with future retirees. Once the person retires from this district, whatever their contribution rate is by contract is it. You can't touch the contribution rate for retirees. Once they're done, whatever their rate is by contract is it. So you can see there what we're projecting in terms of health insurance costs for the future. Employees have the option to waive our health insurance. They get a payment. Again, this is negotiated through contract. It's cheaper for us to give them a waiver payment then have them take our insurance, but they have to show us that they have proof, they have to have proof of coverage elsewhere in order to do that. We also obviously have our retirement costs. You can see where our health insurance costs. Again, the previous slide is a little small. I just want to point this out here. The raw share cost for a health insurance plan for family coverage under the NISHA program is more than $40,000. It is just stunning. So, we took the retirement system costs we talked about, state and social security retirement system, other miscellaneous insurance, which are minor, like workers' compensation insurance, and our health insurance, and this is where our benefits costs are going for next year. Debt service. So let's talk about debt service. This is our final portion of these 5 budget areas that we talked about. Obviously, you have issued debt from time to time. You issued debt to construct your beautiful addition to your school. We issue debt each year for a tax anticipation note. Again, for the theme for the evening of our fiscal years don't line up. We don't start getting our tax money that the town collects on our behalf until January. But our bills last the whole year long. So we have to issue what's called a tax anticipation note in order to cover our cash flow expenses in the fall, because we're waiting for the money to come in January. Again, it would be nice if all these days lined up the same, but they don't. So that's where we have. When you issue a bond or other sorts of debt payments, there's a debt schedule that's set down as you issue the bond, so that we know exactly where our debt payments are going to be each year. The debt is a district's unconditional guarantee to pay. It's backed by the full faith and credit of this district as a municipal government in the United States. You pay it every year. Another portion of this budget is called transfer to other funds, and this is where I want to talk about our bus purchase idea here. So there's 3 other funds. We've been talking all along as we've been doing the budget about the general fund. This is the area that the voters are going to vote on, the general fund. But there are other funds that exist in the district. 3 I want to focus on in terms of this slide is the special aid fund, sometimes called the federal fund. So we have to cover a portion of summer instruction for special education students. The federal government reimburses us for another portion, but we have to transfer money in order to cover our half, our part of it, not half, our portion of it. That's the transfer to special aid fund. You also appropriate money into the cafeteria fund to pay for the district's milk program. Obviously, money has to come from somewhere, so that's the transfer to the cafeteria fund. And then lastly, we have the capital fund. In the past, the district has purchased buses by issuing debt through what's called the bond anticipation note and buying buses. We're not recommending you do that anymore. When you issue debt, there are costs associated with it. You have to pay borrowing costs, you have to pay the interest, you have to pay the fee of selling this debt. Jonathan and I believe, I'd like to speak for you, believe that it's far better for your money, and the more frugal approach, which is I think what we're trying to do here, is to have the money appropriated in your budget to transfer to the capital fund to purchase buses. You have to replace a school bus pretty much beginning when it's about 7 years old. When the bus hits that 7-year mark, it's kind of that magic number of when repairing the vehicle becomes more expensive than having a new one. Buses are subject to an incredible amount of inspection, a high level of inspection from the State Department of Transportation, which of course I think we all love. We can't, or the state can't put a price on safety, particularly when children in a vehicle. So that level that the vehicle has to be maintained at, after about 7 years, it really begins to the balance tips. So we're recommending next year that you transfer enough money to the capital fund where we're going to purchase 2 new buses. These things are not going to show up right away. Bus manufacturers are somewhere between 11 and 18 months behind when you place the orders when the thing actually arrives. So if the voters approve, if you approve this budget, voters approve this budget, we place the order on July 1, it'll probably be at least this time next year before you see that vehicle. So we really need to get in line. So
Can I ask real quick just on the buses? Just for the community and everyone had, we use the benchmark of 7 years as the reality of changing the bus, but there are probably assessments or things made to determine if that bus has a longer than average life or.
Yeah, your buses are maintained by East Hampton School District Transportation Shop. Obviously, I say this as an East Hampton employee, we have very high standard. Our vehicles have the Department of Transportation inspection. And if the vehicle lasts, we keep it. But when something is not working and it becomes more expensive to repair than it's worth it, it's time not to sink
Right.
good money after bad.
And then I imagine to your point, like with the health insurance, there's so much forecasting involved, knowing that you have a bus that is near the end of its life, maybe 11 to 18 months or something before you get the next one. You do your best.
We're trying to predict the future, which of course is difficult. My crystal ball is in the shop, but we're trying our best to figure out what our realistic cost needs. And I'd recommend that you appropriate the money and have it so that you can make this choice instead of having a choice made for you, which is not a good position to be in.
Thank you.
So this is where your costs are for your debt service and transfer to other funds. So obviously the transfer to capital number, that's a really big number right there, because obviously that didn't exist before. You can also see here the bond anticipation notes and interest. One of the things that Jonathan and I are trying to do is pay down the debt for these bond anticipation notes that you borrowed for these previous buses. We want to clear this up your books as fast as possible. There's no reason to be carrying debt and paying interest on it if we can afford to wipe it off the ledger, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Sam, I just noticed something. I was saying, I was looking at the bus, the transportation cost of 1.22. So about 15 years ago, we subbed out our buses. That was our fee then.
Yeah.
We were paying that much 15 years ago. So how much money did we save over those 15 years to have our own buses?
Having your own buses is a really powerful position to be in. I can tell you, without giving too much details, I don't want to speak for another district, but one of my colleagues up island to say had to go out. That district does not own its own buses. They had to go out for bid, and the price went up 40%, which is just an astronomical figure. In that district, they can only raise their taxes by, excuse me if I have the details wrong here, was something like $1.5 million, and the increase on transportation was $1.4 million. So it ate up nearly all of the money allowable under the tax cap. Owning your own vehicles is a very wise move. So that's where we are in terms of, so this is everything that we've been talking about for the last three presentations. We put it all together in a slide. And so you can see that we're projecting that the budget is going to be $38.4 million next year. So we've been talking in the last three presentations about what we're recommending you appropriate for expenses. Now we need to talk about how you're going to pay for all of this. That's the revenue side of the budget. So you can see what we have here. We've broken it down into general areas: property taxes, state aid, use of reserves, interest, pilots, and other revenue, and appropriated fund balance. The property taxes, that is calculated to stay within the property tax cap. The district hasn't done that in the last few years. The voters have been very supportive of your budgets, and rightfully so, but they deserve a break, and so we are recommending a budget here that stays within the property tax cap limits. We talked about that in our last presentation about how that's calculated. The state aid, you have a modest increase coming from the state, obviously, between now and when you are going to adopt this budget next month. If the legislature passes their budget and the number changes, we'll make an adjustment. You can see the other funds there. I think they're largely self-explanatory. I want to talk a little bit about interest. This is another area where we have to do a lot of projection. Interest rates are very difficult to predict, particularly in this market. So we are being extremely conservative about what we think we're going to make in interest of funds the district has in the bank. Because again, neither Jonathan and I don't want to project that we're going to make a lot of money in interest, and then they cut the interest rates and we make no money in interest, and we were relying on that funds. So we're being extremely conservative in our projections, and we're also kind of reforming some of the projections that have been done in the past. In the past, the district has anticipated certain revenues that have really never come to pass. So rather than continuing to bet on what never happens, let's put that out to pasture and go with what actually happens. And appropriate fund balance is money that's left over from year one's budget that is used to apply to year two's expenses. So that's where we are with that. Our goal here for sound budgeting practices is to slowly bring this down over the next few years. We don't want to design a budget that relies on the following year. We want to spend that budget in order to come up with revenue, right? So we are recommending that over the next few years, we're going to bring this number of appropriate fund balance down and down and down so that we can have more predictability and stability for the taxpayers. You don't want to have a budget where you think, well, I'm going to purposely underspend this by $1.5 million because I need to come up with that money in order for revenue for next year. That's not a good technique. So we're gonna bring this down over the next few years as a long-term projection, not all at once. Because again, I think we want to do things that avoid spikes and valleys as we calculate our tax code. We want to be very steady the way we go, all right? So in addition to the budget, which will be on the ballot, there are two other ballot items that we are asking you to put to the voters. We've already authorized one, that is the contract with East Hampton School District for high school education. That is the language that's going to appear on the ballot before you authorize this at your last board meeting. I think we talked about that, so everybody's comfortable with that. The second ballot item, which was alluded to earlier in the evening, no problem, is a repair reserve reauthorization. So obviously, it has been a very long time since the voters last weighed in on the repair reserve here in this district. We have spent a lot of time looking at the language that was passed by the board and the voters as many years ago as it was. And it probably is time for a fresh reauthorization for the voters to allow them to weigh in to tell you whether or not they support the initiatives that you have undertaken over the last year of using the repair reserve to undertake important repairs in this building to allow problems to remain small and not become large. There is no impact on taxes in the creation of this fund. Every year in June, just like we did last June, we're going to put a resolution before you for your consideration to allow you to use excess money left over from the year to put into the reserve for future use. And it's up to you, as long as the voters adopt this resolution, to make that decision. Again, we want to avoid spikes and valleys. It's, I think, a somewhat easy thing to say that if you weren't using it by taxpayers, but that's not actually true, right? Because if you do that, what's going to happen is the tax levy, the amount of money that is collected by the voters, is going to go up and down every year, depending on what kind of fiscal year you have, which means people won't have predictability in their property taxes. And I think the best thing you can do with your budget is to have predictability, and have easy to understand for the voters where their taxes are going to be. If you end up relying on returning money to the voters each year, some years it will be big, some years it will be small, some years the levy will increase a lot, some years it won't. This is no way for people to run their own personal taxes of knowing what they're going to owe the school district, and it's no way for you to run the finances of this district. The use of reserves is a very predictable way for you to be able to keep stability for your taxpayers and be able to take care of problems in this building, which we've said here several times over the presentations, is the largest public investment of taxpayer money in the community. It doesn't maintain itself. And we've undertaken a number of projects this year that were they not done 10 years from now, the board 10 years from now will say, I wish those guys 10 years ago had taken care of this thing so we don't have to spend a lot of money and bond it now. That's the importance of the repair reserve. I didn't know I had a question.
I did.
Go ahead.
That's what you answered, but I'll let Eric go first.
No, go ahead, please.
So can you explain how you got the 7.5?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Look, you can make the number anything you want, okay? I'm recommending 7.5 because it's going to give you flexibility for a very long time. What number you put in, it's not that it's one-time entry of money into the fund. It's not, okay, this year we're going to put in 500,000, and the next year we're going to put in 200,000, but we spent 300,000. It's not up and down like an elevator. Once you put that money in, it goes against the 7.5 or whatever number that is. So if you were to go out to lawyers and let's say we're going to go with a $3 million fund, once we put $3 million in, which could reasonably be done in 6-7 years, you got to go out again. By putting 7.5 million, you have taken care of this repair reserve and set a firm financial plan for this community for a very long time into the future. If you're not comfortable with 7.5 million, make it lower. When you have the resolution before you later this evening, make a motion to put it as a lower number if that's what you want. I'm recommending 7.5 million because it will give you plenty of room to do this for many, many, many years. It doesn't mean we're putting in $7.5 million at the end of the year.
I think that's the clarification that's important for the community.
It does not mean that.
It's not a balloon that we're trying to take care of this year. It's an allotment that will last for years to come. And based on responsible bookkeeping, you see what's available. And as part of that available 7.5 million that the community is voting on, we have the option to, with what we are able to move into that repair fund that we can. It can be a decade or more,
Some years
who
you may not want
knows?
to put any in. Some years you may want to put $1 million in. It depends what's left over. And it depends what your other priorities are. This is not the only this is not the only reserve fund you have in this school district. And some years it may be in your financial interest and subject to the decision of the board, is the recommendation of the superintendent, that you put more money in other reserves. Some years it may be we're not going to put any money in reserves. We had a very hard year. We had a lot of unexpected contingencies come up in the budget. We don't have anything left over. So I think that's the important message to the voters is it's not we're putting in $7.5 million in June. It's we're giving ourselves plenty of ceiling space in this concept to work for years to come. Because it will also set down your plan for the next 10, 15 years of we are putting an emphasis on the use of repair reserve as a way to maintain this structure. And we're dedicating, this is the direction we're going in over the next decade. Again, it's up to you. The board can discuss this later on in the evening when you have this resolution before you, and you can choose to not put it to the voters if you want. Go with that recommendation, pick a different number, whatever you think is politically appropriate for this community. I will tell you though that if you pick a very low number, we're going to be back doing this again before you know it, because
I understand.
things are unfortunately expensive.
I just got to ask you a question.
No, I'm glad you did.
Why interrupt? That's one thing we can explain to the public. It's a ceiling.
It's a ceiling, and
It's a
I think
ceiling.
that clear communication of that, I know you put out the newsletter every year, clear communication of that in the newsletter is an important way to do that. Obviously, you have the media here to help deliver that message as well. It's a ceiling. But again, you have to decide what's right for your district. You're the elected representatives and in charge of the finances here. So,
Yeah, aside from the 7.5 million number in this language, is the language fundable? Can we still make changes to it? It says anticipated ballot language.
you can, you're gonna need to adopt it tonight. Unfortunately, you're gonna need to adopt something tonight because we're kind of out of time. The deadline for when ballot initiatives that are coming from the board, have to be adopted is like March 25th or something like that. I don't think you're having another meeting between now and
I
then.
just wonder if we could make it the language a little bit clearer and say the appropriation of up to $7.5 million.
If you want to add that, we could certainly add
That
that.
makes it sound a little bit less.
That's fine. It can be up to $7.5 million from time to time. I mean, that's a phrase that's used sometimes in law. The board can appropriate from time to time. I recommend you don't add a ton of language to this because this has got to be slid into, the ballot. But yeah, you
That
can
was
do
enough
that.
change for me.
Sorry?
That would be enough change for me.
Yeah, but yeah, you can do that however you like. When you get up to that in the, later on in the agenda, you can certainly make a motion to make that change and whatever you like, we'll be okay. All right?
Thank you.
All right, so again, next step, the most important thing here is we're going to be monitoring changes for the state formula that's coming out of Albany. You're supposed to adopt the budget April 1st. I think we said it several times in presentations. For a couple of years, they were, for a long time, that was a complete pipe dream. Then for a couple of years, they were hitting the deadline every year. And the last couple of years, we kind of sliding in the right direction. And then obviously, the superintendent will be looking to you for input about the expenditure plan that we put forward the last three budget presentations. And we'll make some changes, based on that feedback that you give her between now and your next meeting. If you want to move on. April 8th, we'll go through this, one more time in a sort of an overview technique. And that is when you are going to have to adopt the budget for balloting to voters. There'll be a hearing at your meeting on May 13th where the public will be invited to make comments, should they wish to, about budget. And then the decision is left in the hands of the electors in whichever way they see fit. I believe voting is right here in this room on May 20th. All right.
Thank you very much, Sam. From the board, I know we asked questions throughout the presentation, but does the board have any questions remaining with regards to the budget presentation?
I just have a question about health insurance. Are schools required to use NISHIP?
They're not. There are other health insurance plans available, but I will point out that your labor contracts require you to negotiate with the union about changes to the health insurance that's offered. And I think that it would be a very difficult sell in a negotiation process to be able to make those changes. But there are certainly other options available. For many years, a number of districts on the East End participated in an East End only plan. That plan's costs are actually significantly higher than what Empire Night Ship is. One of the best things about Empire Night Ship, even though it is expensive, is it's an incredibly broad and deep pool of participants. One of the things you want with health insurance is you want to spread the risk in as wide a pool as possible. And because there are so many participants all across the state, in all level of municipal government, from the state government down to villages or special taxing districts, the pool is incredibly wide. And that helps with cost control, which I know is a straight thing to say, given the amount of money that the plan costs, but it's certainly, there are worse ways to run a plan than the way Empire Night Ship does.
Any other questions? All right, guys. So we're going to move now to our business items section. I ask for a motion to approve items 6.1 through 6.9 under business items on our agenda. Do I have a motion? Well, we're motioning to approve and review. We'll vote after. Do I have a second? All right. Jonathan, can you please review items 6.1 to 6.9?
Sure. 6.1 is the February 11th board meeting minutes. Then we have our treasurer's reports, the appropriation status and revenue status reports, and the warrants for February. After that, we have our special education CFT and CP SE reports. We have our approved the repair reserve fund proposition. And then we also have the joint cooperative bidding program with Eastern Suffolk BOCES. As large of a text as that is, this is something standard we do every year to participate in BOCES going out and doing the bidding for the school district. And we get sent the contract and bid award list, and then we can pick and choose vendors from there without having to go through the bidding process ourselves. It's a great benefit to the district. After that, we have the YMCA East Hampton Rec Center for facilities use. This is something I understand we do every year for swim lessons for the kids. It's to approve the contract with the YMCA. Any questions?
Thank you, Jonathan. We're just looking over it.
So the YMCA is 6,000. The YMCA charges us 6,000, isn't that town funded? Will that building?
Sorry,
The YMCA, wasn't that town funded originally? What do you use as spread of use? And
I'm not entirely certain of its origin. I know it's on, I believe it's on land owned by the village, but the building is owned by the town, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's all messed up.
I'm not entirely certain of the how it was created.
And the building, right?
We don't know what the previous rate was for that last year, do we, by any chance?
No, I could look that up and share it with you.
Just run all the space, they're paying instructors.
I think that's just to use the facilities, and then there's an additional fee for the instructors that usually comes after all the lessons are done.
The PTA up on this law, didn't they do that in the past? I know we signed a contract,
Yes.
but I'm not sure. Interesting.
I mean, I've never seen that number before, but it just seems high for like the 2 day, you know, I think it's like 4 days of a month for me to do it. I could be wrong when we do the swim lessons, right? So it's, if you, I mean, even if it's all day, it's only 4 days.
No.
Oh.
20% or something.
Was for the KN one, so
Are you available to do it this year?
A1.
K1? This is what this one program is very important because when I swim, living by the ocean. And the pools, right?
Are you guys okay with keeping 6.9 for approval? Do you need more information?
What does it do back?
You know when it begins the program? In May,
March.
April 1st.
Or is it, we just, that was right? I mean, it's a great facility for like community use. I certainly don't want to nitpick another community thing, but it just, seemed. Hi.
That was what was sent over to my office.
The why will provide lifeguards during lessons.
Okay.
So they'll provide a lifeguard during the supervision.
Mhm.
So I can understand that. I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
They have lifeguards. They provide lifeguards. I'm not gonna do it.
Are there any other questions from the board with regard to 6-1 through 6-9?
6-9,
6-9 will be YMCA, 6-7, comments about. Budget presentation.
I think,
And change the language.
Katie wants to change the language in that.
Yes,
That'd be appropriation up to $7.5 million from time to time. Just to make it clear that this is.
do you want an end date on that, or is it okay to let it be open until the 7.5 is fully exhausted?
You don't want to do that. You want to keep it funded at 7.5.
I don't recommend you put an end date, because again, it creates an artificial construct that you may not like when the end date comes up.
Right, it's not time triggered, it's an appropriation triggered basis.
Right, but again, it's not an elevator of up and down. It's once we've put that last dollar in, of whatever number you end up selecting,
Right.
right?
But once the
Then-
7.5 is in, then we would have to come back.
Create a new one, correct. Yeah, please go ahead.
So right now it's 7.5. Let's say at year end, we put 100,000 in. Then we have 7.4 left. So it's up until you fund it to that amount, and then it ceases to be funded. So if it takes, 10 years or 20 years, it's always available then, and it decreases every time it's funded. That's a county worksheet or everything.
Right, fully understood. And I think it's important that, obviously, we decide on a number now, but also that, just to clarify any languaging, so that when the voters look at that is clearly understood. I think that is something that is easy to, misunderstand, because it's a large number. It's a voting for that year. It makes it, to some, maybe look like that's for that year. So do we have what we need in terms of the rewording?
I think time to time is a good word. But
Well, we're not gonna use, it's not gonna be taught.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think it's
Over
called
consecutive years. Yeah, and I agree.
over. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Then the only question I have is, you're asking us board to come up with a number, which is unfair to me, and I'm not the building supervisor. I am not the administrator, I don't run the school. We're standing back. So you come up with 7.5 million, and how did you get there?
I recommended 7.5 million because I think it gives you sufficient ceiling over hopefully more than a decade of repair work done in this building. And I think that it allows you to set down a dedicated path of what you're going to be doing to maintain this building over the next decade. I think that it's important for each of us to remember, there's no guarantee any of us or all of us are going to be here over this time. So you want to show that you have a path. This is thought about. This is how we want to do this to maintain this building over the next period of years. You can certainly have a smaller number, but I think we've seen that, costs of repair work, of public works are very expensive. The cost of just the simple act of, changing out tile that has become cracked and has asbestos in it is, I think, greater than anybody would say, oh, how much could it be to do this small amount of tile? Well, by the time you add in prevailing wage and all the all the legalities that go along with it, the numbers add up fast. Is 7.5 is too high a number? You could try 5. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It depends on how often you want to be having this discussion and about what kind of path you want to demonstrate to future boards of, we've had some thought, we've had some success from use of the repair reserve.
and this is the dedicated path we're going in the direction we want to go to. Again, I don't want to substitute my judgment for the superintendent.
No, I had actually questioned Sam on the exact same thing, because I think when you do see that number, it looks very high. And when Sam explained it to me, I understood the thinking behind it. And I do think it's really important that we think long-term, as Sam said, so that in the future, we have a reserve there that can be funded up to an amount that's going to carry us into the future for a number of years. So it made sense to me.
Does that number make sense to the board as it is?
Yeah, I think we've got some potentially big items that need to be repaired in the next 5 to 10 years. That number makes sense.
Boilers are definitely going to be one of those big items, as well as some of the fascia work on the top of the building. So we do have to prepare. We have a very, it's an old building, and the infrastructure is something that we're dealing with on a regular basis, maintaining our boilers, the heating systems, cooling, all of those things on a regular basis. We've been nonstop taking care of maintaining these all winter long.
So, well, even if you put the we go to 7.5 million. And we decide that next year we're not gonna put no money in, it doesn't mean we have to make the 7.5 million. It's just saying, here's your ceiling, you cannot exceed that amount. Go back, let's go back and.
Remember in June, we had a long resolution for you talking about funding reserves. That's the way that I recommend that you do this as a matter of course every June. It closes your books, closes the books properly. It gives clear direction to the auditor about where you're looking to have the reserve funds each year. And this allows you to have clarity in what you do. I also point out clause 6 in this resolution that shows where the money is coming from. It's unallocated district funds, so that's money left over each year. It's funds that are remaining in the prior established repair reserve. So what we're essentially asking the voters to approve here is to take everything that was left over in that old repair reserve, pour it into this new one. So that's going to eat into that number, whatever you end up coming up with, it's going to eat away at it immediately. And any funds, this rarely happens, that comes from the state. So, but we put that in there as a matter of course in case it does come, I wouldn't count on it. So that's how we come up with it. If you'd rather have a lower number, 5 million is, something you think is more palatable to your electorate, it's perfectly acceptable too. I want this to be the choice of the board.
The point is that number gives a board and a future board the flexibility to fund a very important reserve, but if the money is not there in a given budget, that of course is looked at, scrutinized every single year, and that 7.5 million at certain years may not be touched at all due to other circumstances. It's just there if something comes up, if there's a large strain, boilers go, and we haven't done that due diligence now, it puts the school at risk for moving on in other areas. It's just a planning mechanism. It is not a mandate to spend that money in a short period of time.
As I said earlier when I was speaking, you have a number of reserves, and in some years you fund them, and some years you don't, based on what the projections are about what you need. For example, you have reserve, an Evelar reserve, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, you have a reserve that's used to pay for compensatable unused sick time when people retire. Some years you fund that, some years you don't, depending on what you think you're going to need over the next few years. And you would treat this in the same way. Some years you fund it, some years you don't. If you accomplish a lot of repair reserve work in the next couple of years, and you say, okay, we're in a good shape, we're in a good spot, let's put the brakes on that. We really want to build up our reserves in other areas, or we've had a very difficult budget year. We've had a lot of things happen that we didn't fully anticipate, so we don't have a lot of money left over. That's perfectly acceptable too. It's just like, the difference between speed limit, you don't have to go that fast, but you're allowed to go that fast. So.
I understand what you're trying to do, you're trying, and I understand.
I think we're trying to avoid happening what happened last time.
But you don't want
We had to look back.
we gotta go
and
back 12 years to find out what the resolution was. Fine, you can pull it up.
Yeah,
But the public is good for that. I understand where you're going, and 7.5 million does scare a lot of people, 5 million will scare people, 3 million will scare people.
Mm-hmm.
But the comfortable saying is you're gonna limit it to 7.5 million, then not exceed, not on a public road, we do have to use money out of it to do repairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at our past budgets we've had with the 2% tax cap, it's gonna be tough to fund that budget, that fund anyway, because we usually exceed the 2%, and our goal as a board is not to go out to, to exceed 2.2% on the budget. So it's a tough budget, I understand where you're coming from, like I said, it's nice to have a discussion about this at a public meeting, thanks for Dave bringing it up as well. But it's important that the public understands why we're doing it and how it works. I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, it's a ceiling of what can be allocated, and it's anything that goes in there. Assuming the voters approve this, any money that goes in there is subject to the board's vote. The board is the one voting to move it from wherever it is into that fund each time. So it's not an administrative decision, it's a board decision. The board has the control over the public tax dollars at every step of the way, as it should be.
I guess another way to think of it is that most likely 7.5 million would never be spent at the same time. But say, God forbid, or 10 years from now, everything crops out at the same time, to have the money, even if we were able to fill it in 10 years, say, then we would actually have the money set aside. If it was at 3 million and boilers go and the roof needs repair and facial all needs to be done at the same time, you have $3 million.
It's a yearly decision to decide. And as I said, we do have, say, the boilers checked on a regular basis. If they're telling us it's not going to last more than a year, it's going to cost over $1 million. We're going to hopefully have money from a couple of years in there that's going to take care of that. And then once that's done, and if we don't have big expenditures, as Sam said, that's when you say, let's take care of some of our other reserves. But you want to have that money available, so if you do have $1 million expenditure, you plan for it.
It's just the first layer in a multi-layered system of checks and balances that allows people who are in the mix making decisions. The school's needs are completely variable, and we can move on that when we need to, but it's not a blatant expenditure of some lump sum of money. So even by voting that, to use that money, as Sam just mentioned, there are still other things that you have to do to move that money. So this is just one step in long-term planning and supports the school and its needs. Is the board comfortable with 7.5 million, or is there a proposal for a new amount?
I'm fine with the money. The only thing I would worry about is that if it does go out for a vote, that people might look at it, not understand exactly what it is, because it's not anything not explained properly to them. They may think that this is an account that we're up to $7.5 million into. It would just be the explanation of it. Just if we could do something like that, even in the newspaper, just to clarify with people that we're not looking to grab this money right now. It's just taking account for a rainy day that we might not even get up to that in October.
No, it'll be very important to put out in the budget newsletter and anytime we have a meeting between now and the budget vote.
So 3 things that we discussed would be beneficial is obviously correct clarity, the news media, budget newsletter, it's an excellent resource that we have. And then I just need to know, do we need to have the wording down tonight for clarification as it hits?
You need to have, if you want this to be on the ballot, you're going to need to have something adopted by, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't know the date. It's either like March 24th, March 25th, because it has to go in the legal notice, which Vicky has to send to the newspaper, and it has to start running with the legal notice.
The amount and the wording, or just the amount?
What is going on the ballot needs to be locked to.
Can we do that now? Is there a wording that you were comfortable with, Kate?
You wanted up to, I think.
Not put it. Go, your pressure is all on you right now.
Periodic appropriation of available funds.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to find where you want that. Tell me.
Sorry.
No.
Right, the periodic appropriation of available funds, so that
Bottom line.
people can kind of understand this is happening on a rolling basis.
Mhm.
Annually, does this happen one year or with multiple times a year?
I mean, in theory, you're allowed to move money in multiple times a year. I've never seen that happen more than once a year, but you theoretically could.
From district fund balance or other funds as described. You're into the repair reserve, and then I think the rest of that up to a maximum of 7.5 million.
I want to make sure we get that right.
Can read it again.
So let's,
But what I just like to say, clearly correct.
Oh.
We have to look at what he said.
Right.
it's approximately that date. So let's just, that,
Available funds.
that the periodic appropriation available funds, yeah.
Fund balance, other
Fine.
funds,
Uh-huh.
as described. Written into the repair reserve fund. Up to a maximum of 7.5 million.
Can I read that back one more time to make sure we have it right? Is that okay?
No, we don't want to rush this. This is why we have these meetings.
Mhm. So, in the, on the bottom, I'm on the bottom of page 8 in the printed version of the agenda here. So you're suggesting that it says that the periodic appropriation of available funds from district fund balance or other funds as described herein into the repair reserve fund up to a maximum of $7.5 million heretofore established or to be established by the Board of Education in accordance with the provisions of Section 60 of General Municipal Law for the purpose of funding major repairs to district buildings and facilities and sites thereof is hereby approved. That's how we have it. That's how we have written down, and which I'll give to Vicky. So again, that's up to you if that's what you want. That I have no objection, of that working for our point of view. If that's what you're comfortable with, that's fine.
Yeah, we obviously don't want to do this in haste, but does that wording from your professional standpoint read clearly?
The sole proviso that I'm not your attorney, I think you're fine.
And does that satisfy the board in terms of clarification that we anticipate for the public to read and understand what they're voting on? Do we want it reread so that we can hear the change, or are you comfortable? Want it reread one more time?
No,
I'll tell you what, why don't you, if I may, why don't you move on to the other parts of the agenda? Maybe I can, with Bob's help, I can type it here, and then we can put it up on the screen for you to come back to a little bit later on, so you can see it in black and white. Would that be okay?
We're gonna table the vote for approving 6.1 and 6.9, and we're gonna move to the superintendent's report and
You want to
recommendations.
approve all the other ones?
You want to approve the other ones?
Yeah, so just
No?
take out 6.7.
So let's take out 6, 7, then. All right, so, we're going to ask for approving items 6.1 through 6.6 and 6.8 through 6.9. All those in favor of approving those items? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries for those specific items. Revisit the 6, 7. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move, now we will move on to the superintendent's report and recommendations. I have a motion to approve items 7.1 through, I think we're 7.7 now, under the superintendent's report and recommendations. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right, thank you, Nancy. Can you please review these items?
Yeah, I always just do 7.6 because the update and enrollment doesn't really need to be
Okay.
approved. So I just, we're very pleased that we came to a memorandum of agreement with our Teachers Association. We began negotiating in early September. Both sides worked very hard going back and forth, and we had a very respectful negotiation process. So we're very pleased about that. And I think what's important to note is that we believe that we came up with an agreement that is really fair to both our teachers and our community. In response to Mr. Buda's question before, the 2% increase is very much in line with what other districts are doing all around the island. And step increases, yes, Mr. Buda, they do vary. It depends on where you are on the salary schedule, and they go anywhere from 1.5% up to 3%, and I said it varies year to year, and where a teacher is on the salary schedule. But as has been discussed here many times, our teachers are below a lot of our neighboring districts, and we do fare as we're not going to be where our neighboring districts are, but we feel like we came up with an agreement that is really fair to both the community and the teachers. And one of the important things to us, as Mr. Schneider went over, the significant cost of health insurance, was getting by the end of this contract, all of our teachers up to paying 20% for their health insurance contribution. And that's a significant impact on the district and our finances. So we're very thankful that we got to that point with our teachers. And as I said, we think it's a very fair contract, so we're hoping for approval from the board. Next, we have a lot of donations, so we're really thankful to the community, to our PTA. People are very generous here at Spring Forest School. We have a donation of gym equipment from Fifth and Dune Partners. As you're aware, we have established a little gym downstairs in the basement that many of our teachers and different staff members use before school and after school. And it helps them to keep in shape. And a lot of times when they have some time in between evening events and after the school day ends, they really enjoy going down there and getting a little exercise and taking care of their health. So we appreciate that donation. We also are accepting the donation for the kiln at the specific price that has been given to us from the PTA. We're really excited to get that installed. That will be happening fairly soon. And we will have some of our students, once they create their works of art, show them to the Board of Education. We also have a donation from Dr. Rosina for a candy buyback. We thank them for that. And we have a donation from the Kiwanis Club. They donated all the uniforms for our Special Olympics Club, which was really appreciated. They came out beautifully. They're t-shirts with an osprey on them, and they're also a dedication to Ms. Payne. And we're very thankful for that donation. Also, really special is we are hoping to accept a donation for new entrance signs. This is an anonymous donation from local families. This is something that people have been talking about, I think, for quite a while, trying to get rid of those flags outside that look like a used car sale lot, and put up something that really goes with the community. So we're very thankful for that donation, very significant and very appreciative. So now I just want to do a little update, and as I always do, talk about enrollment and how it's changed from last month. And first, just to go over some school news, we're very proud of all the different events and things that are occurring around the school. This past Sunday, our robotics team, the Thunderbots, participated in the championship competition at Hicksville High School. And they were coached by Mrs. Fraser and Mrs. Hamilton. They earned the Rising All-Star Award and the award based on their robot design and innovation projects on tagging and monitoring horseshoe crabs. You saw that presentation here. It was really well done, and very proud of their accomplishments in the competition. We congratulate them on making it to the championship, and we also do want to thank all of the firefighters and first responders. Everyone was very worried the night before with Sunrise Highway being closed, and really very impressive response with the firefighters and all the first responders. So all of our, we were able to make it to the robotics competition, thanks to all their hard work, as well as a SCMEA event that also happened over that weekend. And there were 5 students that participated in the SCMEA event, and we, under the direction of Mr. Jones and Mr. Green, and we congratulate Rafaela DeMartis, Izzy McPherson, Samantha Moscato, Wyatt Mutzer, and Saoirse Quinn. Great accomplishment for all these students participating. These are some of the best musicians from around the island that get to meet with each other, compete, not only compete, but more importantly, just be with each other in a different and a larger environment and play beautiful music together. And then also we had our spring school bonnet bowlers, and they brought home the gold, the silver, and the bronze on Sunday, March 2nd. Our team competed in the Long Island Regional Under 21 Special Olympics Bowling Tournament at the All-Star in Riverhead. And here's how the medals stacked up. Hudson McLear, Charlie Fay, and Randy Piago all won gold. Justin Quiago earned a silver medal, and Matthew Chukwi and Silas Rogowski brought home the bronze. And we're very, very proud of these sensational students, and we'll recognize them in an upcoming board meeting in the future. We've done that in the past, and I know it's a very meaningful evening, and it's something that the board appreciates. We do want to give a special thanks to teacher Whitney Reidlinger. She volunteers all her time for this event, and it's very, very special, as does Christy Lamanda, volunteer for our special needs students with events, and we're very thankful for that work from our teachers for our students. Also, over the weekend, the PTA and volunteers worked in the courtyard for about 4 hours on Sunday, March 2nd. They're preparing the area for a grant we received from Rewild to create a garden this spring. It was really, really cold that day, so we appreciate all the hard work they did and their dedication to our school. It's going to be a beautiful space, the courtyard. We have Rewild working there. We have donations from the STA that are going to be working in the garden as well. So it should be a beautiful space over the spring and for our students and staff that are here in the summer as well. Also just upcoming, this Thursday, the 5th grade DARE graduation takes place March 13th at 10 a.m. Everyone is welcome to attend. And we do want to thank Officer Toya and the East Hampton Town Police Department for bringing this very important program to the school. It's been here for a long time. I know it was here decades ago, and we really appreciate their dedication to our students as well. And just an FYI, we did receive our new cafeteria tables for the kindergarten and pre-K students. It's really fun to see in the commons room, and both our kindergarten, first grade kids are eating in that room now. We're going to call it the Springs Little Cafe. We're getting a sign there, and it's just really nice to get the kids out of the classrooms so that they're all being able to eat together with their classmates from all different grade levels. So it's really working out well. And I just want to mention, we did have a very successful pre-K and kindergarten registration evening. We want to thank the teachers that volunteered their time. All the pre-K teachers were there that night, helping parents register and getting just everything set up for people. And so we currently have 34 students enrolled in our pre-K at this time of year. That's significant. And we also have 41 students for kindergarten right now. So that's where we're at with our pre-registration. It helps us in planning for next year to get this done earlier. So we're very thankful for that. And Vicki can just put up the enrollment, and you'll see it hasn't changed much as they do from month to month. We've been really very, very steady. We're up 3 students pre-K through 8 and 1 student at the high school. So we really basically maintained our enrollment. So that's where we're at right now. And we're working Mr. Kelt is working daily with administration, the rest of administration on starting our scheduling. Hard to believe with already March, and we have to think about next year. But we're working on our scheduling for all of our students and our staff as we go forward, and hoping to have that set by April, say early April, so everyone has a sense of where they're going to be, and it's a puzzle putting it all together. We're excited about that.
Thank you, Nancy. Always wonderful to hear about the many accomplishments of our students, but also the contributions of the teachers and parents and everyone coming together to make these things happen. You know, there's a lot of support from our staff and our community, and it means a lot to this board and of course to the students that it benefits right through the donations that were made as well. So thank you for announcing this.
Yeah.
Did I hear what you went up to the aquarium, the presentation on the orchards?
Yes, and from what I understand, and then Mr. Quinn can speak on this as well, they were extremely impressed with our students, not only in their presentation, but just how they behaved, how they acted, just very complimentary. And we did get those same compliments about our students when they went to the Science Center, the Liberty Science Center. They're just very proud that our students present themselves in a way that makes us proud as Springs community.
You guys have any questions on the 7-1 through 7-7? No? All right, so we're going to, let's vote on 7-1 and 7-6. All those in favor? Any opposed? No? All right, motion carries. Let's, I think we'll revisit, are we ready to revisit?
First?
What's that?
Would you consider doing public comment first?
We can do public, I'm fine with that. We can do public comment number 8, because public comment can be on anything, even if it's not on the agenda. LTV, we could do public comment now before we revisit 6-7. Is there anyone?
We have no calls, Eric.
All right, thank you. So yeah, let's move with public comment. We'll buy. Although I think you guys wrote that already, so let's go ahead with public comment. Anyone would like to approach the podium? We wrote one paper for that. Go ahead. One.
What kind of paper did you say?
I said we have at least one paper for public comment. I saw you moved closer to it. You were gonna get there first anyway.
I'm still here.
All right.
One, benefits. Health insurance retirees will cost you next year $1.1 million with an increase of 11.53%. The presentation has the following language. Most retirees, however, do not pay a portion of the cost. We also learned tonight that the teachers going forward will be required to pay 20% of their health insurance costs, which is reasonable in this day and age with such lost and wonderful health insurance benefits that you pay. I don't know why mention is, it was stated by your outside financial advisor, that business advisor, that you can't change or adjust the retirees or make them pay a comparable 20%. You don't, as far as I know, and you should talk, of course, to your legal counsel who knows these things much better than I do. You don't have a contract with your retirees. They have pension benefits. They have vested rights in their pension. As far as I know, there's no vesting and no legal impediment to you adjusting the cost for retirees for their insurance to make it comparable to your other staff members. Give that some thought. I'm not telling you the gospel. I'm asking you to look into it because it's something that really should be looked into. Number 2, capital fund. You currently have 1.2 million.
Just so we can prepare.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not true. The contract states what you are required to pay a retiree in this district for the rest of their life after they retire. And once a person separates, whatever language they had in the contract at the time of their retirement is what you are required to honor for the balance of their life. And so it's very clear in the contract what is paid. The only way to affect future retirees is to negotiate with the union for future retirees. Once they're gone, whatever deal they had when they left is the deal they get. So you can't change anything about the existing retirees. As you negotiate things in the future, it's subject to the give and take of negotiation. You need to balance that out with what are the priorities we have for salary and benefits and working.
I imagine it'd be a very challenging thing for a retiree to 20 years from now just have something pulled out if it wasn't.
Well, I mean, yes, but it just doesn't work that way. You have the contractual language is very clear about what you are required to offer retirees in health insurance in the future, and the only way to change that is to negotiate. But it's only to change that for people who have yet to retire. The folks who have retired continue to get the deal that was in place at the time of their separation.
Thank you for that.
What I'm saying is that you should not seek legal counsel from your business advisor, but rather from your legal counsel, because frankly, when someone retires, their contract is over. You have certain obligations. but there's no reason that you can't inquire of your legal counsel whether you have the right and power and authority to adjust the percentage, especially if what is stated in the presentation is accurate. Most retirees, however, do not pay a portion of the cost. I don't know if that's true. That's what it was.
Well, thank you for your input. Did you have something else, right?
Capital fund. You currently have $1.2 million in your capital fund. Why can you not use the existing $1.2 million in capital fund to pay for the 2 buses that you're proposing to purchase? And I don't know of any restrictions on that capital fund, but perhaps there are. You should inquire into that if you do have a $1.2 million capital fund. As far as 2 buses, I think generally over the years you've done 1 bus a year. I'm not sure why you need 2 buses. Perhaps it would be prudent to have a schedule of how many buses you have and what their ages are, so that you know what the aging schedule is and whether you need 2 buses to be purchased now to be delivered a year from now. It's certainly unusual. If you'd like to comment on that, fine. That's my third and final point.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Most budget presentations give an estimate of what the expected, anticipated, end of year fund balance will be. We haven't heard about that yet. Your treasurer and financial people should be able to give you a projection, not a guarantee, what will be left over that is unallocated and unencumbered at the end of the year. They should be able to predict, and you could, it's not a matter of next year's budget, but you should be able to have a discussion as to what you would expect to have available at the end of this year that you can move into a either existing or to be reformulated repair reserve account. I haven't heard any discussion of that. The problem with a $7.5 million amount is it leaves it open-ended. It's like a blank check. What's more prudent and more open and responsible for the taxpayers is for each year for you to inquire of the administration, what are the anticipated concerns about major expenditures, improvements that are not annually repeating themselves, such as boilers. I'm sure boilers don't cost 7.5 million, probably several hundred thousand.
Probably 2 million.
Probably 2 million. Well, then that's a number that you can deal with.
But that conversation, just not to totally interrupt you, would still happen. If the 7.5 million is, as we discussed.
I understand that.
So those conversations, of course.
That conversation does not enlighten me. I understand that it's a pre-authorization every year, at the end of the year, with minimal scrutiny and knowledge and presentation to the public to move leftover funds from the end of the year's unspent budget and move it into the next year's, make the transfer, end of year transfer, or beginning of next year transfer into that reserve fund. I understand that, and I appreciate now that everyone understands the process. But you would be much better off, and the public would much better appreciate if you kept that number at a reasonable number, one that is matches the likely anticipated short-term, next 2 or 3 year likely capital improvements that would not be necessarily funded by a new bond for any particular major catastrophe or major expenditure. You don't have to have a blank check of 7.5 million, even if you're not going to put it all into the reserve fund this year, next year, or why bind yourself?
I just would rephrase it. I mean, I know what your point is, but it really is not a blank check.
It's a blank authorization to do up to 7.5 million, and even other districts have had a time period. Other districts nearby that you work with have a time period for that contribution to a certain amount. It has to be up to a certain amount within, I think it was 10 years for each camp, is that correct? I don't know the number.
Just finish your comments for now, and we'll see.
There should be a time period. It shouldn't be open-ended. And my concern really is frankly that once you get that money, and that kind of money authorized, pre-authorized to be put into a repair reserve fund, it tends to get spent perhaps somewhat unnecessarily. I'm looking at the ceiling, I don't see $50,000 worth of work that you've already authorized.
Let's not, I don't want your time to be taken up on too much speculation. I can say, and I think the public is quite aware, that all of the repairs have been extremely necessary. and prudently spent at this time from everything that we've done. Hopefully our track record, you can recognize that we've done everything within our means and for the best interest of our students.
Most of them have been necessary, whether it be the work out front, whether it be lockers, no problem. You had presentation, you had a hearing, not on much notice, but you had presentation. The last hearing you had about $900,000 in the repair reserve early 2024. You spent about $600,000 from that. You still have, my guesstimate is $200,000 to $300,000 in the repair reserve. But
It's a lot of work.
the more money that you have there, without anyone really having to explain it, gets spent on things that frankly have no impact on education in this building. Those couple of stains on the ceiling that you
That's
walk
quite
around.
arguable when you're sitting in a room and safety is a concern. I think it certainly indirectly affects. I'm concerned about anything that affects our students, whether it's a condition of the floors or anything else, but I don't want to make speculation. Please wrap up your comments right now.
That's really it. I do think that you have to give hard, as you started to, and I'm sure you will continue to, give very hard and long consideration to keeping that number for pre-authorization for incremental contributions into the repair reserve fund, that you keep that number as low as is reasonably anticipated for the reasonably future needs of this district, maintaining the capital plan.
Thank you for your comments. All right, so with our last order of business, we are going to revisit 6-7, but before we do, did you want to address any of the comments?
Yeah, I just want to, briefly insert some, again, some facts into what we're talking about here. You have a capital reserve fund. You do not have the capital fund. Capital reserve fund exists. This is what was referred to a few minutes ago. First of all, with the capital reserve fund, spending from it requires the specific voter permission in a ballot initiative, and the voters can only authorize things to come out of it that were envisioned in the language that set it up. The capital reserve fund was not set up for the purchase of buses. So even if you wanted to, and even if the voters wanted to, you cannot use the capital reserve money to purchase buses because it wasn't set up that way. So it's not correct to state, as was stated a moment ago, that you have money available in a capital fund. That's false. You have it in a capital reserve fund, which is a different animal. The other thing that I would say is that a phrase was used a moment that work is done without having to explain it. But I think that's exactly opposite of what's going on here. With the use of the repair reserve fund, you have a public hearing that's advertised in the newspaper with all the uses that we're proposing for a particular purpose laid out. The public can evaluate that to see if they want to come to the hearing. The administration does a presentation. You, who are empowered by the law to make that decision, evaluate the merits of that presentation, and then decide whether or not something is necessary.
And by the way, Sam, sorry to interrupt, but that was announced. Thank you for setting that out with
And it was
all
in
of
the
the
paper.
appropriate time that was incorrectly stated in the prior meeting. So just to reiterate, that time frame was allotted the correct manner. Sorry, Sam.
No problem. And then I just want to say a moment, one thought about year-end fund balance and presentation. I think it's not correct to say that these presentations have them. This is my 18th year as a business official. I have never done a budget presentation at this point of the year with a presentation on fund balance, simply because you cannot accurately predict now. I could put a number on the screen. After that number, I would have no faith in it at this moment. There are too many unknown costs between here and the end. And so I also will point out that it does not affect your expenditure budget for next year. It affects what you end up putting in the reserves, which is a decision you reach in June. So I think we need to be careful about, moving around the goalposts in terms of how we do these presentations. The voters are going to be asked to approve an expenditure budget. That's what we've been focused on. We've shown tonight how you're going to pay for that expenditure budget. These other items come next. We work in a calendar of very cyclical work. We will discuss fund balance and year-end fund balance and projections of year-end fund balance when we're at the year end. That's the way we can present to you accurate figures about where we actually stand and not just idle guesses. We have this language now, if you're good.
Just a correction, Sam.
Yeah.
There was a comment made that you're an outside business official. You are not an outside business official. You are hired by the district as a business official. I just want to make that clear.
What's the expression? I don't care what you call me as long as you call me for dinner.
Yes.
Yeah, but enough of that. This is the language, I think, reflecting what, Kate wanted, is that right? Yeah, and, so there you go.
That wasn't public comment. No, somebody else. Did we have any more public comments? I want to hear what everybody else said. So, okay. But LP, did we have anyone calling in, before we conclude public comment? We don't even have LP. All right, so we are, if there are, they can go in once, twice. Okay.
We have no callers.
Thank you, LTV, and thank you everyone here tonight. But so moving on to 6, 7, or Dermot.
Just very quick, I would love to know the, 3 activities that our kids are taking part in: the robotics, schemalia, and Special Olympics. At Special Olympics, there were kids from our school who were volunteering their time as well to help the students who were competing. At the robotics competition, our team helped another team to potentially even beat them in competition. And what I can say is, we're all in really good standing with our kids, and everybody should be really proud of them. They were just a joy to be around. Just a pleasure to be with.
What it's all about.
We're doing all right.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, so I think really what we, and correct me if I'm wrong, to the administration, but what we really need to decide now is both the 7.5 million and the languaging to approve that tonight. After looking at this screen, we'll change language and the amount remaining at 7.5 million. Are there any questions on what we have here before we vote on it? Are you happy with the language and the amount? As it is written?
I'd probably add one more available, just to make it clear that this is. There's the money that's available.
But where would you like that other availability?
If that's too much.
No, this is, this is, the public gets to see us work.
And the board that already work. Available funds.
Is that what you want?
It was the original one. Oh, it wasn't the original one, Kate. They took it out.
I probably. Just what's available. Up to 7.5. I think we've made ourselves there.
I just want to remind you, the ballot is only so good. The number of availables you stick in there, we're gonna make the typeface very
Bold or
small.
italics or underscores with font, is there any?
I don't think that fits.
All right.
Ballot.
I am going to, ask for all those in favor of approving item 6.7.
Aye.
Aye.
One comment I want to make and it's wording, we didn't read the whole proposition, which I like is when you put in there, the Board of Education wishes to ask us to reauthorize the repair fund. We've always had the repair fund, and we're just being straightened out. And that's important too, that we're reauthorizing the fund we've always had, not a new creation, always been there.
Yeah.
We're just reauthorizing.
Yeah, this is something that we've had, and I think the spirit of this, coming full circle here, is for the avoidance of doubt. This is something that we've had for many, many, many years, but we did want to put it back into the hands of the public. There are maybe decades, certainly years of experience with this repair fund and its use, and we certainly believe in it as responsible spending, and that's what we're voting on now. So we kind of interrupt the vote, but I think we have, are we fully consensus on this? Aye. Anyone aye, Pat was remaining? All those opposed? All right, motion carries for 6, 7 as it's newly written. Because we've already ran our public comment on number 2, I'm now also going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.